Hee-haw Juniors!
How we doing, guys? This is John here, bringing you another deck profile for you today. This time we're going to be taking a look at Gurguit here for the premium format. Now, what's super nice about this build that I have for you guys today is that it's a fairly nice build if you're looking to get into the premium format for a standard player. Meaning, there's a lot of cards here that are used in the standard format, but that can also be used for the premium format, and you'd only need to pick up a few additional cards in order to fully incorporate a strong Gold Paladin deck for the premium format. Alright guys, so here is the list for you. If you would like to take a screenshot, of course you may do so now. However, I will also be putting in the description a link below to the actual deck log that I made here on the Bushiroad website. And if you guys have the time, I actually recommend you guys take a look at it. It's a very useful website tool when it comes to building decks, especially for the premium format. That way you can look at grade ratios, look at your G-Zone, and be able to incorporate certain lineups for yourselves. So I'll have a link in the description down below for that. So overall, very straightforward build. Like I said, there's a few cards that you would probably need to pick up that are for premium exclusively, but as you can see, as it stands right now, it's a mostly standard format that is just incorporating premium cards. And one thing to keep in mind is that the Gurguit and the Bluish Flame actually don't apply in terms of restrictions for the premium format, so you're more than welcome to play them here in the premium format as opposed to not being able to in standard. So with that being said, guys, let us go right into the card by card, explaining my reasonings for it. Alright guys, so first up we have good old Gurguit himself from the V series. Now, this being said, keep in mind that there are other types of Gurguits you can play when it comes to the Grade 3 lineup. However, I still believe that this is the best variant for Gurguit. Not just the fact that he has the XL marker, so you're able to draw cards and things like that, but his overall effect is a lot better in terms of defensive plays, and if you are forced to go to Grade 3 first, you're not locked down to certain G restrictions. However, in our G-Zone, we do have things that unlock GB early, so try to keep that in mind. But overall, still very strong card, and of course, he is our main Grade 3 ride. And then moving right along, of course, we have to talk about good old Bluish Flame Liberator Percival. Guys, this guy is still broken, even in the premium format. Being able to gain advantage from just a counterblast and being able to do multi-attacks is a very, very strong card. Really not much to say about it. I do recommend to try and play this in contention with Gurguit, because even if you're striding, his ability is still applicable in terms of being able to wipe out your opponent very fast. Still super strong, run it as a 4-of, very good card. And of course, if we are talking about the Grade 3, then we're going to be playing 4 of the Grade 2. So his effect, very simple, but very powerful at the same time. Keep in mind, though, that he works in contention with not just the Grade 3, but we'll also be playing a few cards in our G-Zone that actually work really well with him. This guy is another multi-attack enabler. In fact, the entire list, if you guys have taken a look at it, the main point of it is to try and have cards that are called during the battle phase and try to multi-attack as fast as possible while gaining advantage through means such as drive checks with your other forms of the stridings of the Grade 4 Gurguits respectively. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now to get into the actual premium cards of the deck profile. So for those who haven't played this particular card, let me talk about it real quick. So this is Knight of Daylight Kineris. So it is a G card that reads as followed. It has the keyword Unite. And for those who are coming into premium, Unite is a keyword that Gold Paladins have that read as followed. That if you call 2 cards, either from Rearguard or Guardian Circle during either turn, then the unit becomes united. Or the key term Unite is activated. So Kineris' effect is Unite. If you have a Gurguit Vanguard in its card name, he gets +4, which is really nice. It's a solid 13k attacker, so he's going to get over those 13k Vanguards just by himself. And of course, if you're riding into Gurguit, you're always going to have a Gurguit Vanguard. Or if you're striding into either version of the Gurguit we run on our G-Zone, because he'll have the name Gurguit, he'll always be active. His other effect is GB1, meaning you have to have at least one face-up card in your G-Zone, which is your extra deck for premium players. When he's placed on the Rearguard circle, you have to choose a card from your hand and you're discarded. But then you look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, then you call a card from among them to Rearguard circle, and then you put the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. So he's really good in the sense that he enables multi-attacks, And the fact that he's a 13k base with an XL marker, just an XL2, he becomes an 18. With an XL1, he becomes a 23, which are both magic numbers, which help hit very well. Now, if you don't want to run Canaris, I do recommend that you can run Wonder Ezel as a replacement. But overall, Canaris is a very strong card, and I would actually recommend trying to pick him up. I think he's fairly inexpensive at the time of this recording, but just keep in mind, you have a very, very type of good flexibility when it comes to this particular lineup. And then moving right along, guys, we have another old card, a lot older actually. I think this is the oldest card that we're running in the deck, and this is 4 copies of Lop Ear Shooter. So this card originally came out in BT07. That means the 7th set that has ever been released, guys. Absolutely insane. So this card reads as follows. When he is placed on Rearguard Circle, you choose a card from your hand and you discard it. And if he was placed on the Rearguard Circle from your deck, you check the top 3 cards of your deck, you search for 1 Gold Paladin from among them, and you call it to Rearguard Circle. And then you put the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. So another good multi-attack enabler, especially when you're going GB locked and you have to have some way of enabling multi-attacks, this card can help you get there. It's another form of being able to be super aggressive with your opponent without needing to supplement things like counterblasts and soul blasts. You can use your hand as a resource, which is nice, especially if you're running Gurguit and you have ways to check the top card of your deck for defensive plays. That means you don't need to be as conservative with your hand, and you can just use it for effects to multi-attack as fast as possible. So overall, neat card, and give it a try. See what you think about it. And then for the last Grade 2 we're going to be running for the deck is going to be 1 copy of Providence Angel. So this is, of course, a flex spot, so you're more than welcome to run something else if you wish, but I particularly like running Providence Angel for the fact that this card, if used on Ultima, is game-ending. His effect reads that counterblast 1 until end of turn, your component can only call a total of 1 Sentinel from hand, and he gets plus 10k power. So overall, it is just a card that helps finish the game fast and aggressive. So very powerful card because it can be searched out with Ultima, and then you can just restrict Sentinels altogether. Good card, but again, if you feel like it, you could probably run something like a Bobo. Maybe you can run a Wonder Ezel if you want to keep and continue with that multi-attack flow. So very powerful card. Moving on. Okay, so now we have the Grade 1 lineup for Gurguit over here, and the first one we're going to be talking about is, of course, Listener of Truth Dindrain, the V-Series one. So very good card, especially in the V-Series. This card helps enable countercharging. It helps draw cards. So, you know, things like your Canaris and your Lop Ear Shooters, it can help facilitate cards for more multi-attacks. And, of course, it's a solid 3k beater for, I believe, 10k additional power. So it's a nice booster on top of that. So overall, still very powerful, especially in the premium format. It actually works very well with being able to call it onto an Excel circle and be able to continuously attack. So think of it kind of like a pseudo extender in a sense. And then for our next Grade 1 lineup, we're going to be running 4 copies of Gorbaduke, the V-Series one. So the reason why we run this particular one is because, of course, you're going to want to try and ride into Gurguit. He's your ideal ride target for this deck, so you want a way to actually be able to search him out consistently. But we don't want to necessarily restrict ourselves in terms of stride fodder and being able to only have dead cards in hand. We want to be able to, you know, because we're a multi-attacking deck, right? We want to be able to call cards on board and be able to gain advantage from that. So this card is a facilitator for that. It's a little wonky in terms of, you know, he won't always get you Gurguit, as opposed to the stride fodder, which will always guarantee you Gurguit. What I mean is that the original Gorbaduke, for those who don't know and are getting into Premium, the original Gorbaduke says that when he's placed on Rearguard Circle, you can actually reveal a Grade 3 and search for a card with Gurguit in its name, and then when you use it for stride, he counts as a Grade 3. Overall, I think that is a very powerful effect, but I value this form of Gorbaduke a little more just because it helps enable more attacks. So with that in mind, guys, yeah, 4 of this, super good. Okay, so the next Grade 1 we're going to be running is another card from the G series, which is the Knight of Insulation Carinus. So this card in itself is very simple. It's just a card that gets resist, and at the same time it allows you to pump up the board. But the main thing that we care about in this particular card is the fact that it countercharges, meaning you're able to take face down cards from your damage zone and then flip them face up. So in Premium, it's actually very common for your opponent to damage deny you, especially in the early game. So if you're only working with stuff like 1 counterblast or 2 counterblasts, this is a facilitator to help with it. Yes, it is GB restricted. However, we do play cards in the G zone that allow us to enable our G zone and therefore our GB effects fairly early, as soon as we ride into grade 3, depending on the amount of counterblasts that we have. So overall, it's a very strong card in that regard, and we're running it as a 3 of. Of course, you can be flexible with it because we are running another countercharger for our last grade 1, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so for the last grade 1 slot, we're going to be running 1 copy of the Knife Throwing Knight Melligant. So this effect is very simple. It's a grade 1 with 5k power that reads, on place, Soul Blast 2, choose 2 cards from your damage zone, and you flip it face up. So this card is a very good countercharger enabler, especially if your opponent is damage denying you. This kind of works hand in hand with the previous grade 1 that we were just talking about. However, this card is a countercharge 2, so it's nice if they are trying to damage deny you by a large amount, and if you need a large amount of countercharging. Not only that, but if there are certain combo plays that you need to do, for example, there's a particular stride that we're going to be going over that needs a cost of counterblast 2, and if your opponent's damage denying you by a large margin, then this card will help you get there. Of course, this card and the previous card can be interchanged as you see fit, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. As it stands right now, 1 copy of this and 3 of the other is where I'm at in terms of comfortability. Okay, so moving on, we're going to be talking about grade 0s now. So, of course, we're going to be running the V-Starter here for our Gurguit lineup. Now, there is another version of Coel in terms of premium format. I believe that one is a United card, and it allows you to put it into soul and call cards from the top of the deck. It is a strong card, but my main point here is that I'm trying to help it build a deck that is a little more premium friendly if you're coming into the standard series. That particular card was very hard to get even in the G series, so this card in itself is also not bad. It enables a quick shield. V-starters are always nice, so just keep that sort of thing in mind. It's very flexible here. Alright, and I'm just going to go through the triggers real quick, because in my opinion, they're kind of pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to be running 4 copies of the Draw Trigger PG. Of course, it goes without saying, if you are running a deck list, I recommend to run at least 4 PGs. If you're not, there has to be a very good reason why, and the Draw Triggers, in my opinion, are the strongest type of PGs. Next, we're going to be running 4 of the Premium Collection 2019 Critical Trigger. This one is very good in terms of just being able to fill up your soul, draw cards, give power. Very flexible and very good utility card, and of course it's a 10k trigger, so it's also fairly strong in that regard. After that, we're going to be running 4 copies of the Stride Enabler Critical Trigger. This is from the recent Premium Collection 2020. I personally believe that these are the stronger critical triggers out of the 2 premium ones, so if you want to interchange with things like front triggers and critical triggers, I recommend keeping this one in, and you could swap out the other one. But as it stands right now, very strong, super good card. And then the last card we're going to be running is 4 copies of the Heal Trigger, specifically the V-Series trigger for the 10k power. However, if you want, there is a premium Heal Trigger, which is the 5k power trigger, but when used for things like G-Guarding, then you get to either Countercharge or Soul Charge. So those are really good, but just keep in mind that those are 5k power, so they're not as strong when it comes to trigger values. Yeah. Alright guys, and that does it for the main deck. It's a very simple and very straightforward lineup. There is some flexibility there, of course, just keep that in mind, but it's something that I think is a very comfortable list if you're just trying to casually get into the premium format with a deck that you already have. Now, the G-Zone I have for you here, it's actually, what I tried to do here is, I tried to keep it very short, meaning you only need to pick up a few cards and you'll have a completely viable G-Zone for the premium format. So, here's the list for you guys for the G-Zone. Take a screenshot if you wish. My big old face is taking it, Slay Me Flare over here, but we are playing 3 copies of that G-Guardian that is right above my head. Yeah, so I'll be explaining my reasonings for all of these cards here in just a moment. Alright guys, so let us get right into that G-Zone. So the first card we're going to be running here is the Stride for the Clan Selection. I believe it is, no, sorry, the Premium Collection from 2020. So this card over here is actually fairly strong, but we're only running it as a 1-of, only because the main focus here is going to be going into your Gurguit strides and trying to enable Gurguit effects. But this card over here is actually very strong in the sense that it helps enable some form of multi-attacks. However, the other Gurguits that we run are a lot more powerful, and that's why I believe it'd be better to try and pick those up if you can. Of course, if you can't, you can always run this as your alternative stride target, and you'll probably be able to do pretty well. Overall, very strong, very good card, but I just personally don't see as much value in it as the other cards. Okay, so the next card we're going to be talking about is super duper important for this build, and that is Golden Dragon Spearcross Dragon. So he is a very, very powerful card in the premium format for Gold Paladin. For his, I believe it's his second ability. It's his act ability in G-Zone. You counterblast 2, you discard a card from your hand, and you stride. So in premium, in order to stride, the ruling states that you need to have been on grade 3 for a full turn. So with the sense that, you and your opponent are trying to gain as much advantage as possible, both of you are trying to push to get that burst stride first, because there's so much more advantage when it comes to being able to stride first. However, this card says no to the grade 2 game. If they give you 2 counterblasts, you immediately go into this, you counterblast 2, and you have your G-Zone and your G abilities live, meaning you're able to do your Canaris, your Unite cards, everything. Very powerful card. Of course, the Soul Blast 1 card, and look at the top 5 cards, you can call more cards. It's a very strong effect, but again, we mainly care about the first ability. Okay, so moving on, we're going to be talking about the main stride targets for your deck. So the first one is going to be Gurguit Helios. Now, unfortunately, as it stands, this card isn't as powerful as it used to be. It has 2 effects. So the first effect, I believe, is Unite, and it gets Quad Drive. It gets Drive +1 when it attacks. And then its second ability is GB3. It gets 5k for each rearguard on the board, and your opponent can't call grade 1 or greater cards when he attacks. So in previous G formats, he was really good because Perfect Guards used to be just grade 1s, and that means they couldn't call grade 1s. However, now that people are playing Sentinel draws, this is kind of a little more lackluster. However, we still like it for the fact that he gets big power and you can get Drive +1. Because we play in a more XL variant now, and we're trying to gain as many XL markers as we possibly can, try to multi-attack as fast as we can, he just becomes a really, really large beat stick. And, because they can't call grade 1 or greater cards, there are certain cards that are being restricted from his attack. It's just, if they have a PG, it's a little more lackluster. But it's still very powerful, and if you misride, he's still a card that says, look, I have Gurguit in my name, therefore all my cards that need Gurguit are active. So the next card we're going to be talking about, oddly enough, is argued to have been worse in the G format, but now because of the premium format, is become a lot stronger for Gurguit, and that is Heavenly Law Gurguit. So his effect is very interesting in the fact that it's an act ability that allows you to look at the top 7 and then call any card from among them onto the rearguard circle, and then if you have combo enablers like Canaris or like Lop-Ear Shooter, if you're going to Wonder Ezel route, you can do that as well, and then it has the power to pump up the board. I believe it's +2k for every face-up Gurguit in your G-Zone. So because you're running things like Helios and you're running Heavenly Law, if you're going into that late-game grind and you have all of these different types of Gurguits in the G-Zone, your board just becomes super-duper big, and you're able to push in for a lot of multi-attacks, which is very scary, especially in the late game. So keep that in mind. Very strong card. He is actually going to be your main grade 4 stride for this deck. And then, of course, you cannot have a Gold Paladin deck without the big boy himself, Ultima. Guys, if you don't have Ultima, he is a very good investment in terms of wanting to get into the premium format. He just enables so much. He's your big red button. He will win you games just off of his effect alone. It's so powerful. And with premium coming out and over triggers, he's just going to become a lot more scarier on top of that. His effect is super strong. It was strong back then. It's strong now. Yeah. Big red button. Good card. Now, moving on to the G Guardians of the deck. The slots I have are quote-unquote flexible. Not really, in my opinion. There's only 2 cards I see a value that you kind of want when it comes to premium in general for a Gold Paladin player. One of them being this one over here, Golden Beast Slay Me Flare. So this card over here enables you to being able to get out of precarious situations. It's choose one of your rear guards, you put it to the bottom of your deck, then you look, I believe, up the 5 cards from the top of your deck, and then you can choose 2 cards with different grades, and you call them to the Guardian Circle. So that in itself is very powerful, because if your opponent is locking you out with guard restriction, like you're not allowed to call Sentinels, or you're not allowed to call grade 1s, or whatever, right? You G-Guard into this, try to filter into that very same Perfect Guard, call it onto the Guardian Circle, and there you go. You have your Perfect Guard. Or, you know, it also helps in terms of comboing with the V-Series of Gurguit, because Gurguit also has a similar effect where you're looking at the top cards of your deck and you're trying to find necessary Guardian pieces that you need. So overall, very strong card. We actually run it as a 3-of because it's going to be our main G-Guard target if we need anything. You can be a little flexible. I believe if you're not going to run Slay Me Flare, there is a Cray Elemental that has a similar-ish effect, but it's a pitch 1, draw 1. So it kind of helps in the same sense of being able to filter for a Guardian piece that you need, just not in the same exact sense. So yeah, good card though, nonetheless. And then the last card we're going to be running is the Fighters Collection G-Guardian Elise. So her effect is very strong in the sense that, yeah, this is a super combo enabler without people even knowing. What I mean by that is that she has a ability that is Counterblast 1, choose a G-Guardian from your G-Zone and you flip it face up, which is placed on Guardian Circle. You look at 2 cards from the top of your deck, and at the end of the battle, you move them to the Rear Guard Circle. Now, the thing is that this ruling is a little finicky because the move isn't a on-place ability, meaning their on-place abilities don't activate. So if you do call things like Lop-Ear Shooter or things like Wonder Ezel or Kineris or things like that, they don't get that necessary ability. But it's good if you're trying to fill up your board, especially on your opponent's turn. If you're playing against stuff like Kagero and you're scared that they're going to blow up everything on your turn with like things like Denial Griffin, at least you have something here like Elise that helps enable sort of combos. So overall, yeah, it's a good card in terms of sense of security and setting up for your late game turns. And yeah, guys, that's the profile. Overall, it's a very friendly deck if you're trying to get into the premium format. It will definitely win a few games, but if you're going against top tier, premium cards, it's not a end-all be-all sort of solution. Ultimate is a card that helps get you there, and if you play it right, you can actually beat those styles of one-turn combo infinite decks. You just have to play very conservatively. Overall, if you're new to the premium format, I recommend giving it a try. You have a Gold Paladin deck lying around, and you didn't want to play with it because of the restrictions. Well, now you have a way to do it in the premium format. But yeah, if you guys like this style of content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I do appreciate it. Of course, if you have any questions or you have any concerns, please leave them in the comments down below. I'll try to answer them if I can. And with that being said, guys, my name is John from Team Gradelock, and I will see you guys next time. Deuces!